Hey guys, I'm Andrew with Diving Sports, and today I'm going to be going over the basics of Polespears. I'm going to be talking about the different materials that are used when making Polespears, the different lengths, the different types of Polespears, and the different tips. And I'll put the timestamps for all these topics within the video so you guys can navigate throughout the video. Polespears are a really great way to get into spearfishing if you don't have the biggest budget, as they tend to be a little bit cheaper than most spear guns, and they also tend to be a little bit easier to learn how to use compared to spear guns in my opinion. And at their most basic level, Polespears are going to consist of three different parts. First part is going to be the band, second part is going to be the actual spear itself, and the third is going to be the tip. And they're pretty easy to use as well. You're just going to put your hand into the band like that, you're going to stretch it up the Polespear grip, and then when you're ready to fire at your fish, you're just going to let go. Now when you're looking to buy your first Polespear, you are going to notice that there's going to be a bunch of different materials that are used. Now the most common are going to be fiberglass, aluminum, carbon fiber, and then sometimes you're going to see graphite and different composites. Now this is a fiberglass Polespear and they tend to be the cheapest option. So they're really great for people who are on a budget or for beginners. Now there are downsides to fiberglass, one of them being if you're a little bit rough on them, they are going to start to chip. And you can get fiberglass splinters in your hand if you're using these without gloves. Fiberglass will also tend to give you the most amount of flex out of the spear, which is something that we don't want. So when you have that spear loaded, you're going to notice that the spear is actually starting to bow down in the center. This one's not too bad, but most Polespears are going to have this, and fiberglass is going to be the worst for that. Now it's pretty easy to combat this. All you got to do is just wrap the band around the spear as you're loading it, and it's not going to give you as much flex. So it's going to give you more of an accurate shot. But fiberglass is going to have the most amount of flex out of all of the materials. Now aluminum is going to be the most common material that you're going to see Polespears made with. It's not too bad price-wise, although they can get up there in price depending on the brand, but they are going to be one of the more durable options, a lot more durable than fiberglass because it's not going to give you that splintering effect, but it is still going to have a little bit of flex to it. Aluminum also tends to be a lot heavier than fiberglass. Now typically, the heavier the spear, the slower it's going to travel through the water, but it's also going to have a lot more punch behind it. And the lighter the spear, the faster it's going to go through the water, but the less power you're going to have behind that shot. Now that weight is really going to vary from brand to brand. There are going to be aluminum spears that are really heavy and some that are quite light like this one. This is a pretty long Polespear. This guy's about 7 feet and it's still pretty light. So it really depends here and there, but these are just going to be general characteristics of these materials. And next you've got your carbon fiber Polespears. Now these are going to be the most expensive that you're going to be able to grab in the market. They're going to offer you the most amount of stiffness within that Polespear. So it's not going to flex nearly as much as any of the other materials. And they're going to give you a really accurate shot because they have so much less flex compared to the other materials. And next up, we've got our graphite Polespears. Now this style of Polespear is going to be really popular in places like Hawaii, where they're using their Polespears or 3 prongs to go for smaller fry fish. Now graphites tend to be decently cheap, they're really light and they're really fast, so they're great for shooting those fast and small fish. And I'm not 100% sure what the material of this Polespear actually is. This is a JBL Abaco and they just describe it as a composite. But to me, this is a graphite spear, at least I think it's a graphite spear. If I'm wrong, let me know. But this is where you're gonna notice differences with different brands. So typically, in my experience, graphite spears are quite thin. This is not a very thin spear. To me, this is quite thick compared to most graphites. So it's really gonna depend on where you are and where you're buying your spears from as well. And with those differences, you're gonna notice that there's different styles of spears. So first off, you're gonna have one-piece spears. So this is a one-piece spear. There is no joining point within the center of it. Sometimes you'll find 2 or 3 points. This one is just a one piece. So these guys tend to be a little bit cheaper. They're really nice if you're only gonna stay in one place and you're not gonna travel around too much. If you guys plan on doing some traveling or you just want it to break down, you will find breakdown or travel spears. So this is a Rife travel spear. This is a 2-piece. So you've got that joining and connecting part down in the center, and it's pretty easy to break it down and put it back together. Now different brands are gonna sell them in different configurations. You'll find 2-piece travels and 3-piece travels. And sometimes brands are gonna sell the pieces individually. So let's say you get a 7-foot Polespear and you feel like you need a little bit of extra length. You can go ahead and get a longer breakdown piece and you can add that on there or swap it out so you can extend or shorten the length of your Polespear. And personally, I find 2-piece breakdowns to have a lot less flex compared to a 3-piece breakdown. So unless you're looking for something that has a lot more customization options or is going to break down to a really short length, I personally lean towards more of the 2-piece Polespear route. But there's also going to be a lot of other options out there depending on what brand you're buying your spear from. There's going to be some where it's not just as simple as an aluminum or a carbon fiber Polespear, but they're actually going to mix the different materials within one spear. So you're going to have some where the back 2 sections and the main sections are going to be aluminum. You're going to have a thinner graphite injector rod, and then you're going to have the actual spear tip itself. And there's a lot of really cool stuff out there, especially when you get into some nicer brands like Evolve, Headhunter, or Gatku. They've got a bunch of different styles and setups for different styles of hunting. And with different styles of hunting comes different target species and different Polespear tips. Now, first off, we have the 5-prong tip. Now, these aren't super common. I tend to see them on some lower end and cheaper Polespears like this Fiberglass one here, or used in places where they're going for species like lionfish. And this one in particular has these barbs or paralyzers at the front of the prongs to help keep the fish on there once you've shot it. And then next up, and probably the most common style that you're going to find, is the 3-prong tip. Now, these are what you're going to find with most Polespears out there. A lot of them come stock with this style. And there are different styles as well. This one also has barbs or paralyzers in the front. Some of them are going to have really tight groupings. Some of them are going to be a little bit wider like this. Depends on the brand that you're sourcing them from and the style that's typically used in your area. And both of these styles of tips are going to be great for most of your smaller fry fish and even some of the medium fish, depending on what kind of Polespear you have. And next up, you have your flopper tip. Now, this is going to be the same type of tip that's going to be on most spear gun shafts. So you've got the tip on there, whether that's a pencil or a tri-cut, and then you have that flopper. So this is going to be better for slightly bigger fish, like medium up to large fish, where they are going to tend to break off of a 3-prong or 5-prong. This is going to allow you to shoot through the fish, and if it wants to fight, that flopper is going to engage, and it's going to help to keep the fish on there. And last but not least, you have your slip tips. Now, these are going to be for your bigger game fish and your pelagics, or anything that's really going to put up a fight and you need a really good holding shot. And the way that these guys work is you're going to shoot through the fish, it's going to toggle, and it's actually going to pull that slip tip off of there, and that's going to be on one side of the fish, while your Spectra, your cable, goes through the fish and is still connected to your Polespear. Now, this is going to allow you to keep really hard fighting fish or bigger fish onto your Polespear. And when you guys are shopping for spears, you're going to notice that there's pretty big differences in length depending on where you're buying it from. Sometimes you're going to find Polespears that are quite a bit shorter, like this Epsilon Fiberglass Polespear. They can go as small as about 4 feet, and different brands will sell them in increments of 6, 7, 8, 9, and even 10 feet. So it really depends on what you're going to be hunting and where you're going to be hunting. If you're shooting smaller fish or you're in dirty water, a lot of times you can get away with a shorter spear like this Fiberglass one. But if you're going to be hunting bigger fish, you definitely want to consider going a size up. So this 6-foot Rife Polespear is going to be really great for your medium and large fish. And if you want to get something bigger like pelagics, definitely going to want to go with something like a 9 or a 10-foot. And generally speaking, the longer the Polespear, the more reach and the more power you're going to have out of that Polespear. Versus something shorter, you're going to have a little bit less reach and range with a little bit less power as well. And so that's it for the basics of Polespears. If you guys are interested in picking one up or you want to see the differences, definitely come take a look in the shop, and I'll put the link for all these Polespears in the description as well. And as always, guys, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.